Let's talk a little bit about Deepwater Wind is making some
Okay.
big news.
Yeah.
Not that this is a company that doesn't make enough big news in the last couple of years, and they're talking about just a tremendously large expansion into the waters off of Massachusetts, and really reinventing the entire storage structure of power produced by wind.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of things about that. One, I'm sure you remember when it wasn't clear who was going to be first.
Yeah,
Whether it was going to be the Massachusetts project,
Cape Wind.
which actually had a head start,
Huge.
but got bogged down,
Kennedy's
couldn't
and
make
the
the decisions.
Koch brothers
And-
were big opponents of it.
Yeah, and then here in Rhode Island, we just stayed on the course, created the conditions to be able to do it, work with the feds in a very interesting way, and then became the first in the country, now up and operating. So I'm not surprised to see Deepwater now go back and go after the Massachusetts opportunity as it comes back into play.
Right.
And so now you can look at this, as just a straightforward, set of wind turbines that creates an energy flow that gets dumped directly into the grid, or as you just alluded to, a nice partnership with Elon Musk and the Tesla energy, the battery storage technology, because imagine if you could generate wind, and of course you generate it when the wind is blowing.
Yeah, that's right.
And you don't when it isn't.
Right.
So now it comes down to, could you store it? Does battery technology allow us to store it and then use it in a more specific way? And so, of course, Elon Musk has been working on that problem to support the Tesla and the electric vehicle market, and also its Solar City, to figure
Right.
out the same problem. If you could store it, whether it's in the car or in your home, and not just use it when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining.
Right.
Right now, we would have a more sustainable energy source, in every
And
sense
also
of the word.
And also significantly less expensive because you don't have the same lossage that you have when you transfer it through lots and lots of cables all the way into the grid. And also, I'm sure, be able to plug it then into the grid when the grid needs it at a higher price than you might otherwise.
So Elon Musk is like he always is. Nothing's going to get in my way to do this, and if battery technology is in his way, he's going to invent new battery technology.
Right.
So he's now the biggest customer of lithium-ion battery technology, and has invested a huge amount of money into developing the next generation of that and new innovations there, and then beginning to explore even other technologies like solid state. And so he's been teasing the market recently. He has a product in the market. He's built relationships with folks like Deepwater to go after these wind turbine things where you could actually store the energy. And he's created battery storage capability for all of us in our home. And he's looking at everything in between to enable us to run with battery power, the things that we do from our home to our cars, to the energy system that we tap into. How cool is that?
It's really amazing, and it's great to see it. We talk about Rhode Island, you talk about it all the time, being that sort of test place. And here we are with maybe the perfect test. And Jeff Grabowski leading the charge here. You worked with him.
I did.
Years ago.
I worked with him, and I was part of the early stages of the Rhode Island project in taking a look at, and actually, I think you could blame me for being part of the process to select Deepwater Wind for that project. So I've been impressed. I think we made the right choice from everything that I can see. And now I'm not surprised to see Jeff and the Deepwater folks, trying to take it to the next level. And to take it to the next level, you really have to get at the storage capability. So good for him, good for Deepwater Wind for partnering with Tesla and Elon Musk, and I wish them luck in the pitch to Massachusetts.
Right, and so this is not a layup for them. They're in a competitive situation with two of the largest energy companies in the world. But if successful, they have leased. They have the rights to a very significant amount of land off of waters off of the coast, and really could be a complete game changer for Rhode Island and for the future.
No, I think it's very cool what they're trying to do, and they're innovating not only in the getting access to the federal waters, to be able to site the turbines, but now they're going down to the distribution technology, the storage technology, where in the end you could see offshore wind power being a very significant player in the energy market. And we know Elon Musk is going to disrupt the entire energy market by distributing power and storing power in completely different ways than the way we do it today.
Right. Let's jump over to our dear friends at Uber.
Uh-oh.
So,
yeah. What did they do today? Did I miss some news? Yeah.
Well, just looking at they still don't have a CEO.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
have this gang of 57 people that manage the company at the moment, correct?
Yeah. No.
Names kicking around are everybody from Meg Whitman to Jeff
Yeah.
Immelt to hosts of others, including Helena Folks' name has been.
Oh, I
on
hadn't
some-
heard that.
Oh yeah,
Oh, no
Helena
kidding.
Folks' name has been on.
Oh my
some-
goodness, how about
some
that?
short lists.
Good for Helena.
So the value of the company has been devalued, I think, by about 10 or 15%. And I will tell you, I've had nothing but troubles with the app in the last few weeks, and every time I go,
Oh, really?
what the heck did they change that leadership for? So the cost of, have they hit a level of maturity? Is that the issue? Now they're looking like a regular company?
No, I think that, I don't think that's true. I think that there's still a lot of upside to what they're doing. I think what happened is they had leadership, they had a good business model, but they had leadership, that, as we've talked about many times, didn't appreciate the human side of this, thought that they could be this, macho, Silicon Valley guy that would be forgiven all sins in terms of how he treated people,
Right.
how he treated women, how he treated the drivers. And you and I had talked many times about how, not today, and this is a great example of what I mean by that. I don't care how good your business model is. If you get the reputation where people don't want to work for you,
Right.
people are going to look for alternatives like Lyft.
Yep.
And so it's amazing to me. So now they're trying to replace them. It's not so easy.
No.
Right? You'd think it would be easy because it's this incredible company with a great business model, huge reserves. You would think all kinds of people would be all excited about being the CEO of this, but yet it has a lot of baggage in terms
Right.
of its positioning. And I don't know why Meg Whitman stopped considering it, but she was very vocal about, like, not me.
Yep.
Right? And
Right.
so we'll see. I suspect a part of why it's taking a long time and harder to do than it should be is because of a lot of that baggage. And I even read some things, about, the past CEO, trying to do some things to control more stock, maybe he sees himself trying to come back.
Yeah,
into
absolutely.
this role.
Well, there's
and
some
leading
rumors
against
about
it.
that over the weekend
Yeah, I
as
read
well.
that, yeah.
Meg Whitman, little known Rhode Island factoid,
Oh,
she
yeah.
was once the marketing director at Hasbro.
I did not know
Yes,
that.
she did.
Wow,
And then she went to Stride Right
Huh.
and oversaw the rebound of KEDS and worked with Leonard Monahan, Providence-based agency, back in the day.
I did not know the
Yes.
Rhode Island part of that story.
Yes.
And she's had a very interesting career, been incredibly successful, seen a lot of the changes that have gone on in tech companies.
Absolutely. Obviously,
yeah.
eBay being her biggest,
Right.
longest home run.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so interesting. So, look into your magic 8 ball, and tell me what's going to happen with Uber.
I think Uber is going to continue to strengthen its position around the world. I think its value proposition, is too powerful, too strong, meets such a fundamental need that we have to easily get from point A to point B. I think there are going to be other share takers that are going to come into the space, but they have such a lead, have so much resource. If they do more of what Bezos is doing to be more experimental about adding capabilities, to their business model, to stay out ahead of the game, to not rest on their laurels, I think that there's a lot more upside to what we're going to see with Uber, and so I suspect that they'll find a CEO that sends the right message about the kind of company they want to be and how they're going to treat their people, but gets really serious about taking this thing, to the next level of growth around the world, because there's a lot of pockets of the world, where they could grow significantly.
You brought up one of our other favorite topics, Amazon. Amazon had a big job fair, I believe last week, hiring hundreds for their plant in Fall River,
Yeah.
recruiting very heavily in
What
Rhode
was the
Island.
number I saw nationally? 50,000?
50,000.
50,000. Imagine that. They are trying to hire 50,000. Now, that doesn't compensate, for the hundreds of thousands of people that have lost their jobs because of the pain the retail industry is feeling. But 50,000 really nice, good-paying jobs, it ain't bad. And you can bet there's a bunch of Rhode Islanders that were
Hundreds.
online trying
Hundreds.
to get those jobs out here in southeastern Mass.
There's a story either in the Globe or the Boston Business Journal today about, they're putting 900 high-level tech positions up in Boston. No TSA, no deal. 900 positions and regional headquarters up there, but a significant facility up there. And the space around them is being bought up by everybody and leased up because they want to be near Amazon and want access to them and want to pitch them their goods and services aggressively.
This is what I mean when I say, yes, you need incentives to do economic development, but you don't lead with them. What's the strategic reason a company is choosing to invest or locate here, right? And really differentiate yourself on a strategic level, and then use incentives as the last part of that deal.
Right.
When you start using incentives as the first part of the deal, and there's no real great strategic reason, right, you're going to run out of incentive money very quickly, and you're not going to give people a reason to stay.
Right.
So you got to focus on the strategic reason. In this case, it's tapping into the tech workforce.
Yeah.
And Boston has a great reputation for that. We have a reputation for doing it on a much smaller scale, but how are we strengthening and building on the reputation, creating more people through the education system with the education and training to be able to take those tech jobs? If we want to sell our workforce as a way to incent people to come here, not financially, but because of the caliber of the skills that we have here, we better get more aggressive about our education system, about our workforce development system, if that's the strategy that we want to hang on. And I think it should be a part of what we do. In any innovation economy, you've got to focus in on the talent, but we've got to get a lot more serious and accelerate the path to, and we should be quantifying it. Like, we should be saying, here's what our goals are, here's where our workforce is today, here's where we want to get to, here are the specific policies and programs, and hold ourselves accountable to making, to reaching that number in terms of our workforce.
Listen, I know Gary and I are going to talk about it next up, but are we sort of creating the worst behavior? What rational person would ever build a building or move anything to Providence, Rhode Island, or maybe even to Rhode Island, without getting some incentive and some TSA and some historic tax credits or any number, rebuild Rhode Island, jobs tax credits? In the case of Amazon going to Boston, they got 0.0. They did get money when they went to Fall River. But in Boston, they're not getting anything. They value being in Boston, that level of workforce.
It's strategic.
It's strategic.
Right.
So, we will run out of money before they pay off.
We haven't already.
Yeah, and even if Stephen Pryor will say, hey, listen, these are investments, they're going to pay off in the long run. They may pay off in the long run. They're not going to pay off in the short run. In all likelihood.
No, they're catalog. As we've talked about, you need incentives, right? You need to be in the game,
right?
But you're never going to win the game purely off incentives. And if you're Rhode Island and as small as we are, you're not going to out-incent somebody else. So what you have to do is have a unique positioning. Why would a company come here? And you have to build a long-term transition to that. This is a 10-year horizon, not a 4-year, political cycle horizon. You use incentive money to catalyze it, to prime the pump,
right.
But then it has to thrive on its own because you can't can't keep dumping all of those incentive dollars in. And so as part of any innovation economy, which is what we clearly should be, you have to look at the labor, in the education and workforce. You have to look at the physical locations, and are we, do we have the sites,
Right.
and the infrastructure, able to do that. And I think the current administration is focused on those things. I wish it was a little tighter, a little clearer, and we were a little more accountable for what progress are we going to make, instead of point solutions and the latest press release on something we're claiming victory for. I wish we were more systematic about the way we went about it, but I think we're headed in the right direction, at least in saying this is what we can be really good at.
Right. Sometimes our declarations of victory remind me of the Winter Olympics when the young American snowboarder threw up her arms in victory, and then I think got passed by two other people and ended up with the bronze rather than the gold. It sometimes feels that way.
Yeah, I mean, you want to claim success. You want to create positive psychology and momentum towards a result. So that part I get. We all do that. That's
absolutely.
Of course we should do that. But of course we're a cynical bunch here in Rhode Island. I always say New Englanders are cynical, and Rhode Island has its own special version of that. We're gonna scratch underneath those claims of victory pretty darn hard.
That's right.
Before we accept them.
We want to actually see the trophy that the Patriots won.
Yes, exactly right.
Talking about innovation takes all sizes and shapes. This weekend was the Newport Jazz Festival.
Oh, yeah.
And we were down there this weekend. You walk around, and it may be one of the most integrated places in the United States.
Yeah.
Black, white, Asians, Latinos, young, old. Just an amazing thing. And as I understand the story, George Wein, tied to the Lorillard family, launched the first real outdoor music festival, and it is now A, the norm in music,
right,
and B, one of the most remarkable events.
Well, I love that you brought that up, because I love talking about innovation outside of the normal context. Of course we talk about Amazon and Uber and all of that, but let's talk about the Newport Jazz Festival. I think it's a great topic. This was an innovation in every sense of the word. This wasn't just about Rhode Island, leveraging a beautiful venue, to share music, right? I think George Wein, goes down in history as the only kind of non-musician who changed the whole genre. I mean, he put jazz and folk on the national map. This wasn't just about Rhode Island. And the way he curated that, and the way he convened that, and the experience he delivered, to folks who still go down,
absolutely,
to this day, right? People know about it around the world. People still come to it for that. The way he curated that, I love that as someone who spends some time thinking about how to curate an event like that. Right? That I love the way he did that, the way he noticed the artistry, right? And it wasn't just each individual musician, being great as alone, right? He borrowed from the whole jazz idea, which is improvisation and combining and recombining the parts. Like, all of that happened on the stage, at the Newport Jazz Festival, and then the experience as someone who was coming to it. So he broke through the genre barriers, played at the edges of that. Just everything about it just screams innovation.
Well, and all these folks are there, and then all of a sudden, because they're there and talking to each other, it sparks more collaboration, and more people are jumping on the stage with people there, or cutting an album with them over there, and all sorts of just wildly amazing things. And then changes, sort of the relationship. The gala was on Saturday night, and one of the speakers said, George Wein may have done more for race relations in the United States than anybody else by putting everybody on an equal footing.
Well, and tease that out. I always say, that we can learn more about innovation by paying attention to the things that are going on around us and lifting our heads up from the silos we live in. So I want to innovate in education, right? Go watch how that jazz festival works. Watch how people connect. Watch how they engage, right? Watch how they care. Like, these are the things you can take back and say, wait a minute, how would that apply in my space? Right? That's exactly, what the Newport Jazz Festival did, and it literally changed the genre and put Newport and the Jazz Festival, on the global map.
So it was interesting. McBride, who's the new artistic
Right.
director, replacing him
Yeah.
on the artistic side, was recounting the story about being invited over to George Wein's apartment in
Yeah.
New York, and he wasn't sure exactly why he was being invited over, but he got invited over this 2 or 3 years ago, and George Wein at the time was 90 years old, and George started
Yeah.
to talk about he needed a succession plan. And McBride was saying, yeah, when somebody's 90 years old, they better start thinking about a succession plan. So it was an interesting
That's unbelievable.
element to it
So
all.
so question then, for you, I didn't go this year, is the new artistic director, going to continue to innovate, or are we going to just rest on the formula?
No, I think
it's
it's
worked for the last 70 years.
Yeah, well, first of all, it had to be right up there with the best attended of
Yeah.
all time.
Yeah.
And second of all, I think what you saw was a greater mix, not only of who the artists were, but the genres of music in which they performed. Trombone Shorty was on Saturday night, which, 10 years ago was Tony Bennett.
Right.
And this year it was Trombone Shorty with a backup band doing everything from, what sounded like Earth, Wind and Fire, what sounded like James Brown, which sounded like hip hop, and all of it merged and happening together. And seeing the Newport Tennis Hall of Fame absolutely rocking was just an amazing accomplishment. That is not a group that is generally standing up for 90 minutes, just to put it in some context.
Yeah.
So it was great.
That's
And,
really great. That's nice. That's nice to hear, because just because you're the innovator,
that's
doesn't
right.
mean that you get to take that mantle all the way to the finish line,
Yeah,
because
right.
you've got to innovate every day. You've got to keep changing. You've got to keep changing the experience. So it must be true, over all the years that the Newport Jazz Festival has gone on, if it still creates that kind of reaction.
Absolutely.
To people who are attending.
Well, and of course, the folk festival had the infamous riot when he innovated a little too far in the early 70s.
That happens.
And had some hard rock, and I think it was
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin. I think
Yeah.
that's what caused the riot. I think
Huh.
that's what it was. And then banned from Newport for 10 years. So
Right.
so sometimes there can be a little price to too much innovation from here to there. Obviously, the other component we want to hit on is we've started this really nice partnership. Kate had a wonderful conversation with the co-founder of Fast Company
I
last
saw
week.
that.
It was great and
What a great
interesting.
discussion with Alan Weber.
Yeah, and he talk about playing to a crowd. He starts off, this guy ran for governor of New Mexico, started one of the leading business publications, and had a great exit, well-timed, getting out of the magazine industry, but starts off his interviewing wearing his Red Sox hat, playing to the locals here in New England.
Yeah, no, he's not stupid.
That's
Alan
right.
Weber is no fool. He's such a dear friend of mine. I met Bill Taylor, his partner in crime with Fast Company, first.
Oh, really?
And then I literally was at some event out on the West Coast. I think it was a Richard Saul Werman event, and I met Alan there. We've become fast friends, over the last 20
Everything
years.
he does is
Right.
fast.
It's
Fast
fun,
friends, fast
but
company.
But you know what? He's not only a magnet for story,
Yeah.
right, and a really brilliant storyteller who is very, very smart. He's what I would call a mensch.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So he's got the human-centered piece
Yeah.
down, and that's the combination you look for. People that are about innovation, but they understand the human part of what they're trying to do. Alan is off the charts. I can't wait to see my friend here September 13th and 14th, and he's going to tell a story because he's become completely passionate, and this came out in that interview.
Yeah.
About, I call it fast community.
Yeah.
How do we use what he learned in in building Fast Company and all the stories, to think about how do we do it in the public sphere, in the public services, in the government sector, right? Because this cannot be, government innovation cannot be an oxymoron. He doesn't think it is. And so he's a kindred spirit with us at BIF. Can't wait to have him there. Did you see our latest announcement to close out?
No, I have not.
So we've now got all 32 storyteller slots accounted for. And so we went out with, let's say, a big bang. It's our first astronaut.
Really?
We've had David Newman from NASA. She was at MIT, designed the spacesuits, went on to become the deputy administrator. So we've gotten close. I'm a space geek. Most innovators like space, and like talking about space.
You drink Tang every morning.
Every morning.
Yeah, right.
Every morning a glass of Tang. But this year, Caddy Coleman, who is just retired from NASA as an astronaut, she's been on 5 missions. She has clocked 180 days in space.
Oh my God.
Right? And is going to come to tell us what her experience was like, what we can learn from her. She's a crazy smart, chemist, scientist, just brilliant, but has had the experience of parlaying that expertise into these 5 missions and 180 days in space. And
The Russians leave people up there for way longer than 180 days.
No, she doesn't hold the record.
No, didn't the Russians lose
she's
some
one
guy
of a
up there
short
for a
number
long
of people
time?
who have done that, and she's going to share a story.
That's great.
At the big
That's
center.
great.
So we're really excited.
And then Walter Mossberg's on This Week with Kate as a preview, and I think everybody here is excited, changing their schedules so that they can.
And he doesn't have to put on a Red Sox cap just to
He-
play to the home crowd.
No. This is a Rhode Islander.
This guy, Walt Mossberg, is a huge Red Sox Patriots fan. Has deep roots here in Rhode Island, and of course went on to become this iconic columnist and almost Sherpa of personal technology.
Absolutely. For the Wall Street Journal first.
With the Wall Street Journal, and he's got an incredible story personally. And he's a really good storyteller.
And he also created a genre of journalism.
He did.
Yeah, I mean, no two ways about it.
Well, he saw it through the lens of those of us who had to use this technology.
Yeah, right.
So his column at the Wall Street Journal was like, I'm happy that all of you guys are inventing all this new technology and these new fancy tools. What does it actually look like for us poor schlubs who have to use this stuff?
Right.
And so he wrote his column through that lens.
Yeah.
And that lens became hugely important, and it built relationships with all of the big players. I mean, I'm sure Kate will ask him. I mean, he knew Steve Jobs personally.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Gates, and these guys, when that whole era was starting, right, they would flock to Walt and his conference. And so Walt has great stories to share. I look forward to the interview later this week on Go Local Live.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you profusely, as always.